Excellent. So we're going to explore market sensing for trend analysis. But first, what I want to do is situate where market sensing finds itself. Here at Cranfield, we've developed this concept called the Cranfield Circle. And it starts with market sensing, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail in a moment. And from there, when you've got that knowledge and information, you can move on and design your market. You can then look at what is it you need to address your market. And when you've done that, you can move towards aligning to your customers. And then finally, right at the very end, engaging with customers. Ironically, many organizations start with quadrant 4. They start at the very beginning in engaging with customers before having conducted any research, before having shaped the market design, and before having ensured that it was correctly aligned to their customers. They jump straight in to the tactics and they look at the promotional activities. And that's why very many campaigns actually don't work. So market sensing, what is it? Well, effectively, it's an organization's capability to learn about customers, competitors, and channel members. And this is in order to constantly be aware and be up to date with the information that they have so that you can respond to trends that are taking place, whether that's in your present market or a potential new market that you want to look at. But market sensing is something that should be built into an organization's DNA. It's a capability. It's a very distinctive skill. And there are organizations such as Apple and such as Tesla that are very good at market sensing. And when you think about it, Apple created a first iPhone that we didn't really realize that we actually needed. So this was something unusual. They created a device that we didn't know we needed. And if you look at Tesla, although they created the electric cars that were available in many different locations, the thing they focused on was the biggest single issue that was coming up in people's feedback and conversations about electric cars. And the feedback was, oh, but electric cars, you've got to keep charging them and there aren't any charging points and they run out of battery really quickly. So what Tesla did was it acted on this information and it created multiple charging points in easy to use locations that were dedicated for Tesla users. And suddenly this very expensive car gained great take-up amongst an audience that previously were unsure or nervous about even buying this car. And in fact, and that's the definition I've just spoken about. But in terms of market sensing in research, another example of this is within the whole COVID space. So there were people such as Professor Sarah Gilbert, who led the Oxford vaccine team and worked closely on the international stage in developing the vaccines. And Sarah Gilbert and others had been conducting research for years on disease X. So they had this disease that they knew would happen at some point in time. They didn't know when. They didn't know exactly what it would be, but they knew it was likely to occur. So they had started conducting pieces of research to better understand, if it does occur, what type of disease might it be? And actually, they'd nearly narrowed it down to be a SARS-type virus, which of course COVID is. And by having conducted all this research in advance, by having sensed the market to such a degree, they had a huge body of evidence that was ready so that when COVID occurred, they could share this widely with other researchers and other scientists. And it meant that for the first time ever, a vaccine was created within less than a year. And that is truly remarkable. When you think of other illnesses and diseases where we've been seeking vaccines for 5, 10, 20, even 30 or 40 years, this was created in under a year. And it was all due to market sensing and having an acute understanding of the market and how it works. So we've looked at Apple, we've looked at Tesla, and we've looked at how this works in science. But actually, it's something we did at Cranfield as well. So when we were creating our new marketing and leadership MSc program, we thought, okay, there are many marketing degrees that are available at a master's level. We want one that is distinctive. We want one that it offers something unusual, something different to those that are out there. So what are the biggest challenges that people at the top of marketing in organizations face? So we had lots of conversations with CMOs, chief marketing officers, and we also had conversations which were more scary with many chief executive officers. And the feedback that we got was that, well, managing the customer experience now is no longer in a single place. So it's no longer, this is a retail store, this is where it is, or this is what our website, this is where it is, or there's something happening here on social media. Now it's happening on all channels. We're in an omni-channel reality where all of this is happening all day, everywhere. And this means that CMOs need marketing capabilities and skills to deliver the innovation and communicate the value in what they're doing, but everywhere, not just in one place, everywhere. And then we've got other challenges taking place in marketing. We've obviously got digital transformation taking place and big data and AI. And we have companies scrabbling around thinking, how do we respond to AI? What do we do? And actually, at the very beginning, universities, including ourselves, were looking at how do we respond to AI. And we already had policies in place for contract cheating, because technically, if you ask ChatGPT to do your assignment for you, that's contract cheating, which is illegal in the UK. We already had these policies, and so we were able to use these. But in other spaces, in fact, entire countries, such as Italy, the Italian government didn't know what to do. So they did something overnight and they said, ChatGPT is banned, it is illegal. They just made it illegal. And then over the following days and a week and a bit, other people said to them, you can't just make this illegal. If you do, there are a whole group of Italian businesses, entrepreneurs, other organizations that may be missing out on opportunities to harness AI and to do more with it. So instead of making it illegal, could we have some guidelines? And guidelines came out. And within the EU, within the European Union, there is work undertaking or taking place right at this moment in time, which is exploring legislation across the EU that looks at AI. And AI has many, many benefits. The challenges we have are when it's used for negative or malicious purposes, and they're the elements to cover. And with all these changes taking place, the chief executive said, actually, chief marketing officers today need a much broader, wider, deeper knowledge than they've ever had before. It's no good that they just simply know about this piece of marketing. They need to know much more. They need a strategic mindset to look at how are they going to use new technology, big data, anything that occurs, that will occur over the next decade and beyond. And that means that they needed to be able to adapt, and they needed to have teams that were skilled to that degree, who could also adapt and perform in this space. And so we created our degree, but it was based on market sensing. And actually, one of the other things the chief executive said was that people in marketing, they didn't say CMOs, they just said people in marketing rarely know how to work with numbers. They're hopeless at figures. Well, I would argue that I'm definitely not, and numbers are a really important factor within marketing. But many people are actually terrified or apprehensive or nervous about numbers, and they're not quite sure what to do with them. So one of the things that we do is we've included an accounting and finance module within the degree so that people have that confidence and address the factors that we found in our market sensing. So that gives you an overview of what it is. You then need to think about this more broadly as a process. So I spoke about market sensing as being part of the DNA of an organization, so that an organization is constantly scouting and looking and addressing what is occurring in the environment. And when they gather the information, they're taking action on this. So George Day, who came up with the idea in 1994, he suggested there was a process. And he's American, hence the American spelling. And it always starts with some sort of inquiry or a question. And the question might be, what do we do about AI? How do we use AI in our business? Or how do we better respond to our customers on social media? How can we actually do that so we don't create a firestorm and everything goes wrong? What do we need to do? So at the beginning, it always starts with a question, which can be a general question, or it may be a problem that a company has faced. And it may be a problem that's been raised at director level. And it may be, we're getting a terrible time at the moment on social media. We have customers complaining about our logistics, complaining about our services, they're complaining about our call center. What do we do? So it all starts with that question, or the problem that creates the question. And the next step is, okay, well, let's find something out about this. Let's gather some information. And this is where you go on a journey of acquisition, acquiring knowledge and information. And from a university perspective, I would always say you need to be very careful where you gather your information from. Google is often used by people for solutions, but the challenge is Google can give you thousands of results. To misquote Neil Gaiman, a librarian will give you the right result. So I would tend to go to a library to delve in and to look in more detail about the answer to the question and look at where research has been conducted. And in the past, there are things that we believe to be true because they're based on research. Let me give you a little example. You know how we're all meant to drink 8 glasses of water a day? Well, where does that come from? Where is the science behind this? Actually, it was a marketing campaign for Heinz soups. And the Heinz company were trying to persuade people. In fact, this is decades ago. And in quite a gendered and sexist environment, they were trying to persuade housewives to buy tinned, ready-made soup. And they said it's really important that you consume sufficient liquids during the day for your health. And one of our tins of soup, or half a tin of our soup, contributes to one of these items. So they talked about consuming 8 pieces of liquid a day, and one of them was tinned soup. And now we all believe we've got to drink 8 glasses of water a day, but it's not based on any actual science at all. So you gather your information, but from reliable sources that have been verified. And when you get the information within your organization, you look at ways to distribute and to share this. And then you all come together and you have a conversation to interpret, well, what does this mean for us? And by doing that, you're actually increasing organizational memory. So you're expanding your own organization capabilities and you're increasing its knowledge base. And actually, I may be increasing your knowledge base at the same time. And if you have a question, do pop them into the chat and I'll take those at the end. So when you've interpreted it, that's great. What do you do next? And the next thing you do is you need to use the information. Okay, so this is what we know. How are we going to use it? And then it needs to be practically applied. And then you need some checks and balances to evaluate the outcome. And that might lead to further questions. Actually, now that we know this, we realize we don't know this. We need to know a little bit more. And this takes that organization memory and it augments or increases it. It makes it bigger. It makes it stronger. And it also means that when your organization is sitting next to its competitors, your organization is in significantly better shape because you're acting on evidence that you've gathered, interpreted, and you've actually employed in a correct way. So that's part of that overall process for learning about a market. And typically, you would want to learn about a market. It may be an existing market, or it may be, for example, somebody has had a good idea and they think we should move into this market. So perhaps the managing director or the chief executive officer has said, actually, just looking around the world, there are some markets we should consider. And at that point, that's when this becomes an incredibly useful tool to delve into a little deeper. But where do you get the information from? And I've mentioned about reliable sources and authentic information. You do have access to information both on an external and an internal basis. There are secondary data sources, and I'll share some of these with you in a moment, and they're free to access. And these may be little bits of data that are about people or their behavior. And I'll, as I say, share some of those in a moment. And there may be some formal data sources where institutions or government types of organizations are gathering information and they share it with you. And there may be other primary data that you gather from research. So this may be where, for example, your organization decides we need to actually ask our customers some questions. We need to sit down and we need to have some big conversations with them to much better understand what they think about this, what they feel about this, why they did this, and perhaps even why they didn't buy this or they didn't react to this promotional campaign. And this would be primary data because you're gathering it yourselves. But one of the key things that you're doing here is you're asking a single question to various answers to assess the opinions of your customers. And this isn't easy. We all I had it on an app today, something popped up and said, have you got 2 minutes to answer some questions? And I clicked no. So the response rate can be very low. So this is also about being creative in your approaches to try and gather those pieces of information and build your survey data. And direct sources of data, well, sometimes you don't need to ask customers. They give you the information free of charge. And they will often do this on social media. And they may complain, or they may give you a compliment, or they may give you a recommendation for how to do something better. These direct sources of data we often ignore. We often don't think, okay, right, yeah, we'll get that, we'll move on. And at the same time, we have companies who do that, but they're still looking to actually send surveys. And I always think, just pause on the survey and just read the social media feed, or just ask some people from the social media feed if they have some time to participate in a survey in some way. And you'll be surprised the information you can gather from this. It can be incredibly useful. So I mentioned some data sources that you could use. Well, I've looked at this from the UK, the UN, and the United Nations, so local, regional, and worldwide. The Office for National Statistics in the UK, and I should also say there are statistical offices in many countries, they provide access to free information, and they gather significant pieces of information. They gather the data from organizations, from consumers, and from conducting other pieces of research and putting big data together. So they would typically be able to tell you the cost of the average shopping basket in the UK, how many businesses there are in the UK, which sectors they're in, what turnover brackets they're in, which sectors employ most people. So if you were looking at, for example, moving into a new market, you might want to explore a statistical office to have a look at some of the country data in those areas just to see the information that's provided. And because this is officially reported, and very often it can be reported through government paperwork, such as tax data, which has to be accurate or it's a criminal offence. So we consider this to be reliable data. The European Union has a wealth of data which it stores in its Europa Statistics website. And again, this is all free to access. And this looks at the EU as a whole, but it also looks at the EU member state and what's occurring in those different places. And that can include data such as how many people have mobile phones or internet access or access to computers or average age in education. It has a great deal of information available there. The United Nations then takes that to a higher level, and it has a dedicated statistics division where it actually pieces together data such as something I was looking at recently. I was actually looking at data protection, and I was trying to find out, are there any countries that don't have any form of data protection? And scarily, the answer is yes, quite a number. Well, the UN has created a dedicated website and the information is all available there. And it's actually really well presented. So it's not a huge Excel sheet that you have to dive into and you need a degree in mathematics to read. They've created it so that it's a world map and the different countries are color coded, and you can see which countries there is data protection, which countries data protection is being developed, and the gaps where there is no data protection. And the UN also very usefully has links to all the national statistical offices in each of the different continents. And all of that information I've shared with you there on the screen is available for you free of charge. So just to sum up what market sensing is, it's that organization's capability to discover more about a market, about its customers, and also its competitors. It's that really looking through a deep lens and in super detail to see what can be discovered. And then when you've got that information and when you've distributed it within the organization and you've had a conversation about it and it's being interpreted, that leads to an informed decision. So it's an evidence-based or a fact-based decision, and means that the organization can respond to trends or changes in the marketplace in a much better way than competitors. It may be a competitor responds very quickly overnight, but they soon have to remove their information because it's incorrect. So this way around allows your organization to still respond swiftly, but in a much stronger position. And from our opinion here at Cranfield, this is actually where all marketing activities should start. They shouldn't start with the creative idea for a marketing campaign. They should start with understanding what's the market we're in, who are the customers, and who are the competitors, and where are there gaps or opportunities for us to gain a much more sustainable competitive advantage. So I'm going to pause there for a second and take any questions that you may have that may be in the chat. Let's have a quick look and see if there's anything in there. Okay, so no immediate questions, which is great. You've obviously I've obviously answered all your questions during that. If you get another question, do please go ahead and pop that in. Having explored market sensing, I just want to give you a little bit more background to the MSc, which, as I say, was based on market sensing. So this is called the Senior Leader Apprenticeship in Marketing and Leadership. So it's an apprenticeship program that's recognised by the UK government and also leads to an MSc. Now, we developed this in partnership with the CIM Academy, and the CIM, if you don't know what this is the Chartered Institute of Marketing. The Chartered Institute of Marketing is the largest recognised vocational body for marketing. I was going to say in the world. The American Marketing Association is a little bit different because that covers the US, but the CIM Academy, the CIM is in more countries worldwide. I'm a member of the CIM. In fact, I'm a fellow of the CIM, and I've been involved with the Chartered Institute of Marketing for a very long time. And we also know that when people are being recruited into marketing roles, those with a CIM qualification, as well as another qualification, tend to do better or are more likely to be in that final shortlist than others. A friend who works in recruitment and they use LinkedIn as a recruitment tool, she has an alert button set up. So if somebody adds a CIM qualification to their profile, she looks at it in a little bit more depth. So this degree was designed in two parts. So part one provides students with an understanding of general management functions and specialist and advanced subjects. And this includes obviously marketing, it includes finance and accounting, and it includes several modules on people management and organizational behavior, so that if you're in marketing and you want to progress to being a senior leader, one of your challenges is managing other people. And if you're younger and you haven't been in the organization for 20 or 30 years, this is where these modules are incredibly helpful, because they enable you to have the tools, the techniques, and the frameworks to understand how to manage people potentially older than you are as well. So that's the first part, which is fundamentally the senior leader apprenticeship part. And you may find your organisation has funding via the government's apprenticeship scheme. In part two, this is where you go ahead and you convert the apprenticeship into an MSc. And we call this a work-based project rather than a traditional thesis. A traditional thesis is a fabulous work of art, and I have students at the moment on another programme at Cranfield who are currently going through and completing their theses documents. But for this particular program, we thought a traditional thesis isn't as helpful for the sponsoring organization. So instead, we look at a work-based project. Part of this is a research proposal. You could call it a consultancy proposal. So effectively, you create a consultancy proposal that says, I will be helping this organization do this, this, and this over this time period because of these elements. I've skipped over it very quickly there, but it is quite a rigorous, lengthy document. And when your proposal has been approved, the second part of that is you actually deliver the work in practice. So whatever it was you said you were going to do, you then go ahead and you deliver it. And on successful completion of that, you then gain your MSc. And once you've gained your MSc and you've completed the CIM elements, you also gain the Chartered Institute of Marketing's leadership program, their level 7 leadership program. So you're nearly getting 3 qualifications at the same time with this master's program. And it is very informed by work because we started from a market sensing base. So let's have a look at what it looks like. The next intake is in April. It takes place over 2 years. It's part-time, and effectively students come on campus for an intensive week. So they come to campus in Cranfield, they leave their work behind, and they're in a classroom pretty much for 5 days of the week. It is very intensive. We've done it this way round so that our students, our learners who are involved with this, can carry on their work. And also, if you undertake a degree program that's part-time, 1 day a week over several years, you might miss elements at different times, whereas this way round, it's in dedicated weeks. In each of the weeks, you undertake 2 modules, and then you undertake an assignment for these, and overall, your knowledge, your skills inform your behavior, which then changes within your organizations. And we know that this has already started occurring. And as I mentioned, it's a very different degree because although we have a focus on marketing, it's not just marketing, it's leadership, but also with accounting and finance. We wanted our learners to be able to sit comfortably in a boardroom and to be very happy with discussing numbers, to understand what was taking place there, and to contribute on an equal footing. And as you're undertaking the Chartered Institute of Marketing element, your CIM membership is included. And actually, if when you get your CIM membership, which tends to be in the second intensive week rather than the first one, as soon as you start that, you can actually apply to become a registered marketer and keep a diary. This is all online in the portal for the CIM. You keep a diary and you note the different learning processes that you're going through. And at the end of 2 years, you can convert your registered marketeer status to chartered marketeer. So, for example, I'm also a chartered marketeer, and every year I have to fill in my own online portal and show the continuous professional development and show that I'm actually staying ahead. And typically, this is within 4, 5, or 6 learning examples. So if I'm writing a book and I'm writing another book at the moment, that counts as a major contribution for that. And that definitely helps. But there will be other things. I will attend a webinar, maybe something like the first part of today's session, to inform me about an area where I think that would be interesting and useful for me. As a student, the great thing is because you are studying, you effectively add in the different modules, and we know that they take more than so many hours. So you've already completed the bulk of the work, and you just make a note of what you hope to learn, what you learned, and what you will do differently. As an apprentice, you do this anyway within your portfolio. So you simply copy and paste your portfolio into your CIM portal, and within, well, just over 2 years of starting the degree, you can gain chartered marketeer status. And that definitely makes a difference. Because we're working in partnership with the Chartered Institute of Marketing, one of our modules, Leading Change, is actually delivered at the CIM headquarters rather than at Cranfield campus. We thought it might be great for the students to see where their vocational institution is located. And it can be, that again is an intensive 3-4 days, and that's located in the south of England, whereas Cranfield is between Milton Keynes and Bedford, 50 miles approximately north of London. So this gives you an idea as to our key points of difference. But I wouldn't take my word for this. Also listen to some of our students who've shared some fantastic feedback with us, and has been very positive. And Alexis on the left, I think she's had 2 promotions since she's completed her apprenticeship, her MSc. And Pfizer, I'm expecting great things from in the future as well. She started this year. So thank you very, very much for joining us today and for listening to this session. Let me just check and see if there are any other questions that you may have. And I've also got on the screen a QR code where you can discover more about the programme. And let me just stop sharing my screen there as well. But my colleague Sophia has also mentioned in the chat that if you wanted to book a one-to-one and have a conversation with her to learn a little bit more about it, you can just simply email her and she will provide you with some more details. Excellent. Everybody is very focused on getting a lunch break now, I think. So I can't see any raised hands or any other questions. If later on you think, oh, I wish I'd asked this, or I should have asked that and I forgot, please email Sophia and we'll do everything we can to respond as quickly as possible. So thank you very much indeed for your interest in the MSc in Marketing and Leadership. And I hope you enjoyed the very small taster session on market sensing. That forms part of a module that I teach at the very beginning of the programme on understanding market and competitors. And we go into significantly more depth. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.